AskReddit by Kex91. What is abusive, but not widely recognized as abuse? Encouraging someone when they are having destructive behaviors. But you're so much fun when you're drunk. Come on, it can't be that bad. Just have one beer. You don't have to stop, you can just cut back, right? Putting the pressure of huge expectations on a child and then telling everyone that all of these dreams are the child's dreams even though they're obviously yours. Child actors come to mind. Their parents living vicariously through their children. Haven't seen it commented yet, but not teaching your children good food behaviors sets them up for EDS and a lifetime of self-esteem issues. Such a big one for me. I don't allow anyone to comment on my children's eating habits. I'll make her food, and she will eat what she wants. When she's done, she's done. I don't ask her anything else other than is your tummy full and leave it at that. I do make sure to offer balanced meals in our house, but also treats too. I don't want her to demonize food the way I do and feel like it's bad to have a treat if you want one. My parents did this, and it made me hide food and binge eat when I was growing up. I have been working with a nutritionist and personal trainer for years to rebuild my food habits and self-esteem, and this is just one big takeaway I've gotten from the experience. Parents that are super controlling and won't let their children make age-appropriate decisions. I had helicopter parents and can confirm all it does is delay your kid from taking any risks or learning how to SRY boundaries and make decisions until they move out, and stakes are a lot higher and mistakes hurt them a lot more. Using guilt to manipulate the people closest to you. My grandmother, 99, can send my mom, 80, into such darkness with a swift and stinging comment. I hate to see it, and it is absolutely abusive. Your grandma sounds like the kind of person whose funeral features cake and balloons. Not allowing your children to show unhappy emotions. My mom would do this all the time throughout my childhood. Whenever I looked slightly after her, she would lose it on me and go batshit crazy because I wasn't the little happy girl she used to know. It's really frustrating because sometimes I wasn't even upset to begin with until she started shouting at me about it. Telling someone how they feel, or how they should feel. You shouldn't feel like that. Worst emotional advice in history. Not letting employees have a lunch break. Edit. Yes, it's illegal. My job requires constant monitoring, but it's a desk job so I don't care. I just eat and work at the same time. If it were any other job I would speak up. I'm also in the office completely by myself, which is nice. Or water. Calling your partner vulgar offensive names and arguments. So many people believe this is normal couple behavior. My dad would get angry when my mom calmly tried to discuss family matters and it always ended the same. He would call her a bitch and she wouldn't raise her voice or curse back at him. I don't know how she did it. My dad didn't want to deal with anything after work. He worked and then he watched TV. Why have kids if you don't want anything to do with them? When you come home in a bad mood and take it out on your family. They didn't do anything and they love you. Don't fuck it up with the name calling and yelling. Talk to them instead or ask if you can just be left alone. Or you come into work and do the same to your employees. Telling someone that they did not hear or see what they did. Making them question their memory and sanity just so you don't look bad. This is called gaslighting. Parental alienation. Telling lies to children about their other parent. Really screws with kids' heads because they are 50% that other person. And also making the child be a mediator between parents because they are so immature that they can't behave like adults. Trying to shame gaslight someone out of their own aspirations, pursuing their own happiness due to your own insecurities and jealousy. My mother made me feel like I was abandoning her and told me that I was the worst son ever just because I was 18 and moving out for college. Thanks for encouraging me to grow up. being yelled at all the time, and those yells either having subtle or not threats. Even if there's no action on those words, it counts as mental abuse. I was in a relationship like this. The slightest inconvenience and she'd scream at me. If she got lost while she was driving, she screamed at me to find directions. I used to sit at work and read quitting time because I knew I had to go home. A month after the breakup, a friend was driving me to look for an apartment and stated that we were lost. I had a panic attack hearing him say that. It was after that I figured out that I didn't walk away from that relationship unscathed. Taking a kid's door. Privacy and control issues for life. Deny your kid any semblance of privacy, and they will become excellent at hiding things from you. It's a power play punishment, not an instructive one, at least not in the way parents hope. It's especially backward-headed when used as a punishment for hiding things from the parents, as it reinforces that things must be hidden better. My dad used to do this a lot. You're dead on about it, reinforcing that you should hide things, particularly personal issues, problems for me. Still don't feel comfortable being open with him even though he's much more chill at this point. Not providing emotional support, shutting down someone's emotions and telling them they are invalid or don't matter. Once I was in a pizza place and the manager owner was yelling at an employee something along the lines of, "So what if your family dog died? There are thousands of them looking for a home. Just get another one after work." That's not a valid reason to get a day off when the girl was leaving. Then he acted super polite to the rest of the customers as if nothing had happened, maybe expecting people to agree with him. Your comment made me remember that. I was disgusted at the lack of empathy. The silent treatment. My mom would give me the silent treatment for weeks at a time. This caused a few things to happen. 1. I stopped sharing things with her. I never knew what would offend her, so I don't really spend much time with her and I'm very selective about what I tell her. 2. I take her opinion with a grain of salt. 3. My walls are very high with everyone. 4. Now, decades later, ignoring me will instantly make me flip my shit. Compulsive, consistent, lying. You take away someone's ability to consent to a situation when you lie to them. Deleted. Parentification of a child, usually the eldest child. In fiction, especially kids shows where the parents are absent, it's usually the eldest kid who looks after the younger siblings. Or having to be your parent's parent because they have a mental disability. The child has to act as a mother and the father acts like a toddler, but being dependent on the toddler. Mandatory overtime. Work beyond your physical and mental well-being or you'll lose your income source. IDK if this is everywhere, but this is certainly my experience. Bullying in school. We all know that bullying is abusive, but schools never treat it as such and neither do parents. The way schools deal with bullying is also very enabler, like if you stand up for yourself, suddenly you're just as bad. This is literally not how it works at all. Psychologists and abuse specialists do not recognize reactive abuse as a legitimate form of abuse. God, I can name so many things. 1. Subtle comments about somebody's appearance, in hopes that they'll become insecure with themselves. 2. Programming your partner to not see their friends, and to feel like they need to engage with you most. 3. Not supporting their passions, while acting like you're not against them investing in them. 4. Being controlling, or overly jealous. And X200B. It saddens me how many insane, abusive people there are out there, that likely won't get identified as such by their partners. If you're not able to be who you want to be, and see who you want to see, because your partner respects you and trusts you to do what you say you will, there's some abuse in the equation. Mocking someone with the defense, "Oh come on. I was just joking. Sheesh, lighten up." The purpose of a joke is to elicit a laugh from the other person, not to passive aggressively vent your feelings by making them feel bad. When young children display behaviors that make them seem old and wise or beyond their years, it can be a symptom of them being parentified. I recently sat through an awards ceremony that was all red flags. Children receiving awards for noticing when their teachers were not feeling well, checking on everyone else, putting the adults' feelings before their own. Those kids are probably not okay. They have to learn to read facial expressions and overall tone for safety. Children who pick up on things like that generally are walking on eggshells at home and are constantly trying to avoid the bomb or defuse the bomb that are their emotionally explosive parents. Neglect, including neglecting your child's mental health. Staying in an unhealthy marriage for the kids. My parents are still together to this day despite practically despising each other, and it made our household so miserable to grow up in. I think a lot of parents like mine think they can hide their issues from their kids, but it just never ends up working in the end, as the problems always end up spilling over onto the children. It's definitely negatively impacted my overall mental health to have grown up in such a volatile and aggressive household. I'm so sorry you have experienced this as well. Growing up in this kind of home has made me far less able to recognize abuse and defend myself against it, especially in my past marriage. Thinking you own your child's life forever. Emotional blackmail. Systems abuse, i.e., abusers using the legal system, police or CPS to further isolate and control their victim. Sexual assault in a married relationship. This one is awful because having to explain it to people means massively oversharing about your personal life. Just saying someone was sexually abusive without giving any details often isn't enough of an explanation for skeptics, on top of the fact that whole notion of martial rape is still confusing to some people. I was testing you. Double quote. Elder abuse, especially when it's one elderly spouse abusing the other. It's like the entire medical system and society is blind to it. Can we add keeping grandma full code and doing all life-preserving measures, and keeping them on a vent even with no chance of recovery, so they can continue to cash those social security checks? Forcing children to hug and kiss relatives when they clearly don't want to. I remember once an aunt of mine was leaving to go back home and asked me for a hug and a kiss. I didn't know her very well, and was super shy as a kid, and didn't want to. I was okay with the hug part, just not a kiss, even on the cheek. So I wrote the word kiss on a little piece of paper, went up to her and gave her an actual hug, then handed her the paper. I was expecting to be reprimanded, or worse, laughed at. Instead, she got a big smile on her face and said, "That was really creative. I think I like that better than a real kiss." I found out years later that she carried that little scrap of paper in her wallet until she died. Deleted. Identification abuse is real. Controlling everything about your child, how they act and do their decisions, and who they are allowed to interact with and who they are allowed to be as a person, to a toxic level, is abuse. Also, all these moms putting makeup on their children or dressing them up all whack when the child's against it is disgusting. Deleted. Not apologizing to your kids when you're wrong, or even just admitting you were wrong in the first place. One thing I've worked to improve about myself is my ability to admit when I've made a mistake or was wrong about something. I love them, but my parents sure as hell didn't teach that. They've never admitted their mistakes, much less apologized for anything. I guess they see it as a sign of weakness or something. I don't think that's a good attitude to have. I'd probably go with institutional abuse. I used to work in various care settings and it happened all the time. I'm not referring to things like violence or shouting. I mean things like people asking, "Can I please have a cup of coffee?" only to be told no. Coffee time is at 3 o'clock. Or "Can you please unlock this room so I can take a shower?" and then being told no, "I'm too busy right now." These may seem like minor things, but they mean everything if you're being held somewhere 24 hours a day for an extended period of time. It happens every day all over the world, but it's something that's almost never talked about. Suicide threats. I was guilty of this. I still feel the shame from it. I have gotten genuine suicidal thoughts, but that's between me and my medical professionals, you know? Every time I see this, I get embarrassed with guilt, especially since I genuinely really liked and looked up to the other person. It's so cringe. It's awful that we were such close friends and I did that to them. Luckily I got the chance to apologize and give them some closure. They forgave me, but cut off contact after I apologized. I can't blame them. The craziest part is they still think I'm a good person. They still responded to me with compassion. Remember to take your meds, folks. Whether suicidal feelings are genuine or not, go to the professionals first. Prioritize self-care. Being unstable is not an excuse to hurt others. On top of that, you'll end up hurting yourself just as much as you hurt them with such threats. Deciding to have a million kids and then forcing your eldest to babysit them constantly, not allowing them to have a life of their own outside of the kids you chose to have. Comparing you to someone else thinking it's just a motivation to encourage you. Constantly putting someone down and saying they're stupid. That's like textbook emotional abuse. I don't see who wouldn't consider this abuse other than the abuser themselves. Living vicariously through your child. Grooming your child to be a trophy kid. Family members making fun of your hobbies or how you eat, then saying they are just teasing, joking. I'm 33, I like anime and I eat a lot, but I do exercise 4-5 days a week. Yet they still make fun of me. Toxic positivity. Treating someone like shit and then trying to make them out to be the bad person when they don't want to talk to you, especially when your apologies are half-baked. This might be unpopular, but any religious environment that uses fear as a tactic, especially against kids. My friend grew up in a very religious household and now has PTSD from being constantly told to behave or he's going to hell. Making the older kids take care of the younger ones. At 9 I was changing diapers, cooking dinner, doing laundry, etc. Since I had to stand on a chair to reach the stove, you would think my parents would realize that's wrong. But no. They also made me mow the lawn as soon as I could reach the lawnmower's handle. This is called parentification and it's not okay. Children do not make good parents. Sabotaging birth control to induce pregnancy against the other person's will. This is a problem across both genders. Child beauty pageants. Putting ridiculous adult beauty standards on toddlers and children and basically trussing them up as pedo bait so their parents, usually the mothers, can live vicariously through them. It's disgusting and should get you on a what list.